other races got their checks, their peace, their closure. We still got promises, but denying over and over. We built this shit, y'all were never here. Watch the wealth move everywhere but here. We marched for freedom, they cashed in on ours. Sat in the rain, they danced in the showers. Every bill with our name got all rewritten. They quote our pain like scripture, but never listen. This ain't a handout, this a debt loan due. History knows it and the world do too. Pay what's owed, cut the check, bitch. Reparations now, cut it now. Stop playing with our check, bitch. We lived in movements, open the door. Then watched immigrants take the floor. Every law we bled to make was shared. But when it's our turn, they dirty ass, never there. Immigrant seats block the claims we made. In political seats throwing shade. Saying if they can't pay, we can't get paid. Now that's the shit that can have you getting sprayed. Yeah. Green cards is your reparations, you're a hater. Here's our invoice for centuries of labor. The shift is here, paradigm real. Either cut the check or somebody will give. Until that day we gotta tighten up. Build our own, pull our resources, we gotta tighten up. No more envy, no quiet divide. One code, one vision, one side. Group economics, that's the seed. Self-repair before they lead. No jealousy, no fear, no stall. Together we rise, or not at all. This ain't a handout, this a debt loan due. History knows it and the world do too. Pay what's owed, cut the check, bitch. Reparations now, cut it now. Stop playing with our check, bitch. This is the shift, the correction, the call. We built the foundation, we own it all. FBA forever. It's not begging, it's a debt that old. Stupid ass.
Mike Larry, oh my God. I don't know what you did to create this song, but oh my God, this song right here, they gonna love it.
It's R&B Mary J. Blige. Mike Larry, thank you. We opened doors that they walking through. Built a house and shared a view. Somewhere along the line, they forgot who set the table. We gave the blueprint. Now they changing the label. You can copy the rhythm, but not the pain. You could sing the note, but not the chain. We cried in the fire, but came out gold. Still holding the story our elders told. We showed the world how to stand tall, and we ain't falling for the same games at all. This time we know what we're facing. We're reclaiming our foundation. This is delineation, a separation born of revelation. We drew the line to keep our power sacred. We are the soul, can't fake it, can't take it. This is delineation, yeah. We hold the root, they chase the vibration. We ain't hating, we preserving the truth. That's delineation. Too long we fed the world and went hungry. Shared our plate, but they called us ugly. Now we see the mask and the smiles face low. Can't build the future if they don't wanna know. We stood in the storm, they danced in the calm. Took our rhythm, tried to steal our song. But the melody lives where the struggle been. You can't touch soul if you ain't live within. We love the people. Every queen and king gotta can't fight for freedom, then hide from the fight. If you eat at the table, you better bring life. Oh, nation. We ain't breaking, we awakening. We ain't breaking. shaking, we awakening. That line divine, we claim again instead. Not division, it's preservation. So you can't tether the truth, can't still control. This is delineation. Love that's proud and a pain that's patient. We ain't hating, we're cultivating the rules. That's delineation.
Yo, what you looking
at? My fault. I forgot to take myself off mute. Welcome to the Revolutionary Agenda. I'm your host, Seduction Doll, aka the Black Villain, Lady Che, whatever. Welcome to the Revolutionary Agenda. Sorry that it's on this channel. The channel got struck earlier. They was hating. They was hating on For Live Black News, so it struck like 5 of our channels, and only one got to stay up. So that's cool. We'll fix that. But fortunately, I couldn't go live on my actual channel. I did try. I did make an attempt. However, nonetheless, here we are. I'm sorry, on the personal channel. So, we just have to share it out. Anyway, welcome to the broadcast. We're gonna talk about data centers today, which is pretty important. So they're going up really fast. There's a lot of controversy, especially with the cost of utilities right now. So we're going to get into that. We're just going to get started. And I just want to thank you in advance for sticking around or catching up with me. If you're lucky to catch this, so catching it live, you're lucky. Not catch the replay. Either way, I hope you learned something. So, and this is mostly important because, you know, as Black folk, we don't really know what's going on in our own backyards for real. So this is going to be a little insightful. So I did a little something a couple months back on data center going up in Tennessee and how it was causing the Black community there, where it's right there, right next to have all sorts of breathing problems like COPD. People are losing their lives, you know, and these billionaires, they're only in it for the money, so they don't care about the people. So we're going to talk about that. So stick around. Let me get to it. Let's get to it. 1 second. All right. Fair use. Let's see. Make sure I got that up. Yeah, I do. All right.
Giant warehouses are popping up across the US, more than 2 every week. They feed AI algorithms, store photos, and answer our questions.
Hey Google.
A data center campus like this can consume as much power and water as an entire city. And many of the biggest server farms are emerging from the desert. But there's no official record of how many of these are being built, where they are, or even who owns them.
To be honest, I've never really run into so much resistance for records than this project.
Big tech companies often go to great lengths to hide the details. So we decided to build a map.
What we designed is a system to see not only the individual location of each data center across the country, but also where they cluster.
And for some, these clusters are appearing too close to home. We went to meet people who say having data centers next door is affecting their health.
I had a hard time breathing. I couldn't sleep. I thought I was losing my mind. Summertime is more of a during the winter it's like almost like an engine trying to start.
So how many data centers are there in the US? And is there enough power and water to satisfy a building boom that is only just getting started?
Where I am standing now is at the middle of the data center capital of the world. This is Loudoun County, Virginia, otherwise known as Data Center Alley. And it may not look like much from down here, but just take a look from up above.
These are Amazon data centers. Zoom out and you can see tech companies tend to build data centers in clusters, where there is a reliable power supply, access to enough water, as well as tax breaks and affordable land. But of course, these tend to also be places where lots of people already live, like Santa Clara County, California, or the most heavily populated part of Arizona, Maricopa County. And of course, here in Northern Virginia, the most densely populated part of the Washington, D.C. metro area, and one of the largest and fastest growing residential areas in the US.
Yeah, I mean, I was the fourth homeowner in this neighborhood, fourth to occupy a house in this neighborhood.
Donna Gallant has lived on this street in Prince William County, Northern Virginia, for the last 30 years. All very peaceful until 2021, when things started to change. These are Google data centers, and ever since they started rising from the ground, Donna has been looking for answers.
There's no transparency, and
With the data center companies or with local authorities? Or
both. So anytime you ask a question, it's, oh, we signed an NDA, we can't talk about it. Oh, we're under NDA, we can't talk about it. So there's no transparency at all.
The site isn't complete yet, but she says the noise is already taking its toll.
When I go to my room at night, the tonal noise immediately triggered my anxiety to the point where I couldn't sleep. I ended up having to go down on my first floor and put noise-canceling headphones on just so I could sleep.
But for Donna and her neighbors, this is just the start. Over the next few years, they will find themselves surrounded by a string of new data centers.
That's going to go from this road here all the way and around my neighborhood. That's where the data center is going to go. And that's going to be 75 feet tall, dead smack in the middle of a neighborhood.
Zoom out a little more and you can see this plot of land. It was originally meant for housing, but in 2023 it was rezoned to clear the way for the construction of data centers instead. Prince William County already has over 70 data centers, but if this master plan for a data center opportunity zone is fully realized, together with Loudoun County to the north, they'll have more data centers than Russia. Donna set up a local campaign to challenge the rezoning, but the lawsuit was dismissed.
Yeah, it's heart-wrenching. It's heart-wrenching. Do I have ill feelings towards the data center industry for that? Yes, I do. I think we all need it. It's the way the world is going. But do I think dropping it next to people's homes is the right answer? No.
There is no definitive public directory of data centers, no official map, no single regulator to ask, or government agency to FOIA.
So, it's been really tricky to kind of get these records because the companies don't want to disclose all of that information.
By tricky, we mean redacted records and requests denied on the grounds of trade secrets. It turns out there is one thing that most data centers need: backup generators, in case the grid fails. And anyone who wants to install a generator needs to apply for an air quality permit.
So what we set out to do was request all of the permits that are issued to data centers for those backup generators.
That meant filing public record requests for air permits in every state. They list the capacity of the generator, so we can extrapolate the power needs of the data center. They also provide clues about who owns it. Take this hotspot rapidly expanding close to Columbus, Ohio.
There are at least 164 emergency generators permitted here. This is a data center where the air permit was applied for by an LLC called Magellan Enterprises LLC. But the company has applied for a trade secrets exemption. So they were actually able to redact pretty much all the information that we wanted.
But all of the big tech giants must disclose any companies like LLCs that they own. And by digging into their official records, we managed to pull back the mask. And it turns out that the data center in Ohio,
It's not Magellan Enterprises LLC, that's actually owned by Google.
this is a task we repeated hundreds of times to build this map. It's the most comprehensive tally to date of America's exploding data center industry. Every dot is a data center large enough to need a permit for its backup generators. These are the facilities either already built or approved for construction at the end of 2024. We reached a total of 1,240 data centers. That's nearly 4 times the number in 2010.
The companies that use the most amount of power in data centers across the country, it probably won't surprise you, are Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Meta, and QTS.
Of the data centers we pinpointed, 177 belong to Amazon. And we've just passed the huge Amazon data centers behind us, and already we're straight into a residential area. And you can start to see why these data centers are so controversial. Those boxes on the roof there, that's the ventilation for the cooling systems to keep those hundreds and hundreds of servers from overheating and overloading. And these are running 24/7. And there's nowhere else in the world with a higher density of data centers than here in Loudoun County, Virginia. As much as a third of the planet's internet traffic flows through the state of Virginia. The 329 data centers we tracked together consumed almost a quarter of the state's electricity in 2023. Tight security by the looks of it. We got pretty high fences with barbed wire on top. I don't think we can get much closer. It's rare to get a glimpse inside one of these server warehouses. We contacted dozens asking for a tour. Eventually, a small company called Lunavi in Wyoming said yes.
Hey, Courtney, welcome to Lunavi. Well, come on in, I'll show you a tour.
This 35,000 square foot data center is tiny compared to the largest ones in the US. Those can stretch to well over 1 million square feet. Lunavi offers cloud services to customers like betting apps, mapping companies, insurance, and healthcare businesses. Zoom out and you can see that the location is no accident. Cheyenne, the capital of Wyoming, sits on an east-west internet superhighway. The city is also well connected to renewable energy generated by these wind farms. Wyoming is only a small player compared to Virginia, and to attract more, the state is offering generous tax breaks to encourage the big tech giants, like Microsoft. This large data center began emerging from the map south of Cheyenne in 2021, and this is a site belonging to Meta, just over the road.
You're currently within the critical infrastructure space of Data Center 2, designed to have 800 cabinets roughly at full capacity on that side. So we take the air from the above ceiling grid, we feed it down through the computers, they heat the air up, comes back out the back and up through the chimney above ceiling, and then just continually circulates the air on that perspective.
Lunavi has the space to scale up to the more energy-hungry GPU processors used to train AI algorithms.
So this big white space is future computing. The cabinets in this facility now have a capacity of something like 5 to 10 kW. If they want to build the ones that are going to do AI with graphic processing units, GPUs, that'll go up to something like 70 to 100 kW.
GPUs do need more power, but they can complete more tasks than a regular processing chip and in less time. The lower ambient temperatures in the high plains of Wyoming mean data centers use less energy and water to cool themselves. Lunavi say they use around 500,000 gallons of water a month when at full capacity. That's roughly the amount of water used by 200 people.
The nice, cool ambient air temperatures allow us to maintain a low PUE, which is a power usage efficiency, which then allows us to just be a lower cost center for our customers and pass those savings on.
But this area has been plagued by droughts. So farmers are watching the data center campuses emerging to the south of Cheyenne and getting nervous. This is a story unfolding not just in Wyoming and in Virginia, but across the country. The average American holds hundreds of gigabytes of data in the cloud. Big tech companies, the healthcare and finance sectors, governments, of course, hold much more. We're talking zettabytes of data being stored, processed, and retrieved every day. 1 zettabyte is 1 trillion gigabytes. Of course, none of this lives up in the clouds. It's stored in large warehouses on the ground. This graph shows the explosion of data centers in the US in just the last 20 years. From above, just little white boxes, but remove the roof and you can see what all the fuss is about. Rows of computer servers performing calculations, training AI models, or storing data. Your social media accounts, photos, and videos live in a place like this. All these machines need power, a lot of it. So do the building's cooling systems and water pumps. The largest data centers can consume over 2 terawatt hours of electricity a year, enough to power 200,000 homes. And just in case the power cuts out, data centers have backup batteries, as well as those diesel generators that they need permits for. The byproduct of all that energy use is heat. In many data centers, massive cooling systems suck out hot air and pass it through air conditioning units in a continuous loop. The most common type uses chilled water to absorb heat and release it from a cooling tower. The cooling systems and fans emit a constant drone. The noise level is generally below the limits permitted for industrial zones close to residential areas, but these were never designed with the 24/7 drone of modern data centers in mind. Listen to this. The ambient sound of Dulles Town Center in Northern Virginia, recorded on a phone. Three Amazon data centers sit roughly 200 meters away. I ran the audio through noise reduction software. Only then do you realize that hidden behind the drone of the data centers, there is birdsong. About 20 miles south in Manassas, Virginia, Carlos Yanis measures the noise from his local Amazon data centers.
But again, it's pretty much what we were experiencing.
And that's just from your deck out there?
That's from the deck.
So what sort of reading are we getting?
So right now it's stabilizing, but of course we're talking.
He does this twice a day, usually in the evening, and logs his readings with a local residents group. This has been his routine for the last few years.
It's not something that you just hear, it's something that you just feel, and enough to the point when it's really, really strong, you can even hear the windows vibrate.
He spent $20,000 on insulation and replacing all the upstairs windows. Still, the sound and the feeling of the constant hum keep him from sleeping.
I'm getting bombarded each and every night. And again, I can feel it. Even if I touch the wall, you could feel the vibrations on the wall.
The American Public Health Association says chronic noise exposure can lead to serious health problems like cardiovascular disease or increased stress. Carlos's son started having nightmares.
Recently, with my kid, he's 7 years old. He was waking up a few times. I was trying to figure out what was going on. And one day he told me, Dad, there's a spaceship outside. And as a father, it's terrible because I can't do anything about it.
Since replacing the windows, they've also tried white noise machines. At one point, Carlos moved his whole family down to the basement to try to escape the vibrations. After the local homeowners association raised concerns to county officials and Amazon executives, they initially tried to muffle the sound by putting material around the fans on top of the buildings. When that didn't work, they replaced the fans themselves with taller exhaust vents. The noise level did drop, but Carlos and his neighbors say they can still feel the vibrations from the data centers. An Amazon spokesperson told us the centers operate well below required sound levels. Meanwhile, Carlos feels stuck. He's worried that the data centers will reduce the value of his home, and he'll never recoup the money he spent on it, even if he decides to move. And it's not just Amazon to the north. This is what the neighborhood has coming down the line in the years to come.
I'm not against technology. I'm not against growth. I'm not against what data centers can chip in to the counties themselves. I just believe we're crossing that fine line that they need to be out away from homes, out away from schools, out away from hospitals.
All of these data centers require huge amounts of water, and that's not so much of a problem where there is plenty of water to go around. But in places of drought and water stress, like Phoenix in Arizona, where my colleague Dakin went, there it's a completely different situation.
This is a proposed site for a new data center here in the southwest of Arizona. From what I understand, the only way they're going to get water here is drill into the ground and use groundwater.
As the Colorado River makes its way south from the Rockies, its precious water is siphoned off for agriculture, industry, and housing. Since 2000, river flow has shrunk by 20%. So by the time it reaches Arizona, every drop counts. These maps show how extreme drought has gripped the state since 2000. Zoom out and you can see the entire southwest is drying up. And then, if we overlay the map we've built, you can see the mega-thirsty data centers moving in. This Microsoft data center was built in 2019, and over the last 3 years, one has become 5.
Directly across the street is the new Microsoft data center that's being installed. Some of these data centers on the outskirts of town are really farmland that's being plowed under for the purposes of the data center.
And as you can see from the air permit documents we requested from the Maricopa County Air Quality Department, this cluster is likely to be huge.
We're looking at a total of 280 generators at this facility, so it's a huge amount for a combined capacity of almost 800,000 kilowatts. It's located in an area of extreme water stress, and also we can see that the major basin that it's drawing most of its water is coming from the Colorado River.
Documents show that Microsoft planned for each of these buildings to use 1 million gallons of water a day, a total of 1.83 billion gallons a year. That's enough water for roughly 61,000 Americans, or a city the size of Santa Cruz, California. All this in a desert-like climate that is getting hotter and drier every year.
And what we found is that up to 43% of data centers, and this is our largest data centers, are located in areas of high or extremely high water stress. And that's really shocking because data centers require a huge amount of drinking water to be able to cool their servers.
You heard right, hundreds of thousands of gallons of drinking water. More than half of Microsoft's and nearly half of Amazon's data centers are in high water scarcity areas. In many cases, big tech companies have flocked to the desert to take advantage of a string of generous handouts, including tax breaks, affordable land, and cheap electricity. But trying to find out how much water these data centers need has been difficult.
A number of these permits, companies apply for what's called a trade secret exemption, but we've been excited to get around 50 records that really show the granular utility metered water use of some of the largest data centers in the country.
Take this example, a Google data center campus in Midlothian, Texas. Records show it used 160 million gallons of water in 2023, about the same as a small power plant. And this Kyndryl data center outside Boulder, Colorado, used 84.5 million gallons of water that same year. As this map shows, droughts are common here too. In Arizona, water is tightly regulated, whether it comes from the Colorado River or is pumped from underground near population centers. But each smaller municipality can decide how it uses its water allocation, and in many parts of the state, there's little to stop companies from sinking their own wells. The big players, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Meta, have pledged to be water positive by 2030, meaning they would restore or save more water than they use. But this is only possible via an elaborate system of water credits, or offsetting. Basically paying other people to save water or mitigate water pollution on their behalf. Another big player is QTS, a supplier of data centers where businesses can rent space for their IT infrastructure. According to our count, the company has 34 data centers in the US. QTS say they are investing heavily in water-saving technologies. But not every aspect of their operations conserves water. This is a QTS data center in Aurora, Colorado.
Some of these data centers are using more water to irrigate their grass outside than they are to cool their servers inside.
An Aurora water official told us this one will need 1.1 million gallons of water a year just for this landscaping, double the amount used by the building itself. And even if a data center manages to cut back water use, it's a trade-off.
For example, just air conditioning of some kinds or closed-loop systems. You're not going to use as much water, but you are going to substantially increase your overall power demand. So it's kind of this balancing act where there's no real win here in terms of how resource-intensive these data centers can be.
If you add up all the power needs of the 1,200 plus data centers we tracked, together they could soon consume more than Poland did in 2023.
Data centers, particularly driven by AI, could use as much as 600 terawatt hours of power by 2028. I mean, it's a magnitude that we've never really seen across the country before. It's really startling.
As states race to fuel the AI boom, some are reversing their green energy promises and turning back to power from coal and natural gas. In Nebraska, the two largest electricity utility companies committed several years ago to net zero emissions from electricity generation by 2050. But just this single metadata campus in Springfield, Nebraska, could use as much power in a year as 400,000 homes. One of the state's largest public utilities voted to postpone closing down 2 coal-fired power plants here in Omaha.
This is what I'm talking about, family. Like, who knew, right? Like, I sure as hell didn't. I didn't even know there was a actual data center in Aurora where I live. You know what I mean? It's utilizing, like, we got a big problem with water in Aurora. Like, I remember even as a little girl, they was talking about conserving water. Like belligerently conserving water. Okay, my brother's father, my parents have a house, you know what I mean? So it was like quick, showers, washing, cooking. You had to conserve water because the water you pay utilities in Aurora, you pay for water in Aurora as well as electricity. I didn't even know I knew there was a water filtration company out there, but I didn't know there was a actual data center in Aurora where I live. I was more concerned about the one going up near the airport, or what I think is going up near the airport. You know what I mean? So you see what I'm talking about? How we not hip to certain things that we need to be hip to. Like, that's a lot. Like, that's a lot of water and utilities. Like, that's a lot, especially in an area like Aurora. Aurora's not. It's It's like Denver, but it's not as big as Denver. Denver's bigger. You know what I mean? Either way, that's crazy.
This image, created using satellite data in June 2023, shows a plume of CO2 emissions released from the North Omaha Station facility at an estimated rate of 300,000 kilograms per hour. And in 2025, the utility decided to build 2 new natural gas plants, all to meet spikes in electricity demand, mainly driven by data centers. And let's not forget the thousands of backup generators we tracked, which, even if they run for just a few hours a month, spew harmful pollutants into the air.
That means that utility providers are either abandoning their commitments or significantly stalling their commitments to move away from fossil fuel. They're not going towards renewable energy sources such as solar or wind, for example, because those resources right now can't sustain the massive power consumption demand.
Big data center developers have announced massive investments in renewable projects like solar plants, wind farms, or nuclear power. For example, in Pennsylvania, Microsoft has struck a deal to buy power from the notorious 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant when it reopens in 2027. The plant suffered a partial meltdown in 1979. But just like with the water credits, big tech companies are also looking to offset their carbon footprint by paying others to deliver renewable energy to the grid on their behalf. The big question is, can the already fragile and fragmented grid support it? And if massive infrastructure upgrades are needed, who picks up the tab? Amazon, Microsoft, and Google told Business Insider they were committed to paying their full share for upgrades to grid infrastructure, like high-voltage power lines. But there's plenty of evidence pointing to the fact that costs are already being passed on to customers. In Virginia, Dominion Energy disclosed that it would need to roughly double its electricity generation by 2039, mainly to meet demand from data centers and electric vehicles. The expansion could cost up to $103 billion, increasing residential electricity bills by as much as 50%. Despite the burden on the grid and on water supplies, some states are doing all they can to attract data centers into their backyards. Many regions simply don't want to miss out on the AI boom or the kudos of having a big tech employer on their doorstep. So far, though, the promise of large numbers of jobs has not materialized. A Business Insider analysis found that even the largest data centers employ fewer than 150 permanent workers, and some have as few as 25. But the tax breaks keep on coming.
What we found is that massive corporations are benefiting from various taxes in different states for their data centers.
We tracked 37 states offering tax incentive programs to data centers, like zero tax on building materials, machinery, or equipment, but also preferential rates on water and electricity. In Virginia, 56 data center projects received tax savings of almost $1 billion in the 2023 fiscal year alone. Take a look at these data centers in New Albany, Ohio.
In 2017, a little-known LLC called SideCat went to the city of New Albany in Ohio and said, we are going to build 2 gigantic data centers on about 300 acres of land. In return, could you please give us 100% property tax abatements for at least 15 years? And the county said, okay. By our estimate, SideCat LLC received at least $60 million in foregone taxes. And then, everybody found out that SideCat LLC is not a mom and pop data center company, but was Meta, the parent company of Facebook.
The rollout of AI across industries, from social media to medical care, will accelerate data center construction. In 2025 alone, Meta planned to spend at least $64 billion on facilities and equipment. Google $75 billion, and Microsoft $80 billion. And the ultra-powerful computer chips driving the AI tools will consume more and more energy. The 2024 Department of Energy report estimates that their electricity use, driven by the AI boom, could soon require as much as 12% of total US electricity use. In 2023, it was just over 4%. For those like Donna living alongside these data farms, there are decisions to be made.
I don't think a lot of my neighbors truly understand the severity of what's to come. And I'm hoping to be out before that happens. Breaks my heart, but I can only fight for so long. And then I'm going to wave the white flag and I'm going to pack up and I'm going to leave.
It's like a blanket broadening people's feet. So Felly, like we sit on a whole bunch of boards here in the city, different things, you know what I mean? Me and Jesse, well, like, I kind of have like 2 or 3 different ones that I sit on or that I participate in. And one of them is specifically focused on environmental racism, things like that, like things like this example, data centers, electricity, like the utilities, pollution, stuff like that that's super important, right? And it's kind of like a kind of feels like a hush hush type thing. You know what I mean? Like, because there's not like a lot of dialogue about it. You know what I mean? Because there's not a lot of unless somebody's talking about it, like really focused on them, you don't really hear about it. Like locally, we rarely hear about things like this. And when we do, like it's maybe in the like a news break, the I call it like the internet newspaper. Might be in there, or you might see maybe a 2-minute news broadcast about it or something like that. So not really knowing, but I know that shit's cracking off because I pay utilities. I pay electricity in my apartment, and the bills have been like, the bill just keeps going up and up and up and up and up. And I would say that I and my brother really don't utilize a lot of electricity. You really think about it, like I barely turn on my room, like think like if we had to utilize anything, it's probably for maybe a couple of hours a day, really, with the lights and whatnot. And I don't really have a working heater, so it's not like like the heating cost is up. We applied for LEAP or whatnot, but I hadn't in my apartment. I've never had a heater, like in my apartment. The apartment underneath me, they keep their apartment pretty warm, so it raises up and it heats up the whole apartment. And then on some of my machines that I utilize in my room, like I have an oxygen concentrator, and just a couple little things like that. They radiate a lot of heat. When I utilize like 2 little small lamps, that I utilize one for my podcasting, but it pretty much lights up the whole room. And I'm just saying, the restroom light, kitchen light, things like that, but really hardly ever really utilize a lot of electricity. But I noticed the bill kept going up. I had it down to like $33, and then it raised up to like $80 in a matter of like months. I mean, literally a couple of months, like 5 months at the most. So I noticed that things were starting to get like, the bill was raising, and then, they would be issuing like a little warnings, you might lose electricity, or you might be might have an outage, or this, that, depending on the weather. But we haven't had no major snowstorms, so really, what's that about? Or windstorms, anything like that. So it kind of seems suspect to me. And then I just happened to notice these little things, and wasn't really paying too much attention because I'm kind of sedentary. I just noticed, and when I joined this one particular board, I was like, damn, I knew there's a motherfucking plotting on this expansion near the airport. Woo, woo, woo. Talk about nuclear this and blah 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 that, and we, in our community, in the black community in the city of Denver, this one coon, always throws these little functions, right? Like Jesse went to one today, right? And one of the sponsors is XL Energy, and sometimes they come, the XL Energy people, and initially it was just to say that black people can be interested in energy, right? Come to find out, none of those black people that ever come to talk about energy, like the rate of your bill, water usage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, for the average person like myself, the resident, right? The residents of even small businesses, anything like that. They're always talking about big like I want to say they're always talking about corporate shit versus the effects of our bills shit or what's really going on. You know what I mean? Especially with the data centers going up and down. Like coming or being put up. They're not talking about that. They're not talking about a lot of things. And a lot of the utilities are kind of all go hand in hand. You know what I mean? We got especially when you talk about electricity, water. Some of these things go hand in hand. So I jumped on this board and I was like, man, nobody's really talking about it for Black Denverites. Like, we don't really know what's going on with the utilities. If you really think about it, unless you're seriously up on it, which I could probably say a good 80-90% of people aren't really up on what's happening with energy over here. You just kind of know that your bill's raising or that, some kind of sounds a little suspect when you watch the news or read the newspaper. You're not really, really paying attention. And unless you go to community events where they're there, you're still not getting the full information. I feel like they're just doing what corporate people do and lie and hide shit. You know what I mean? That's how I feel. I feel like the energy company has not been honest about shit. They're just like a lot of the polluters that we have in our city. Sorry, cats. All right. So yeah, that's just that. So we're just gonna carry on real quick. Let's see.
Millions of Americans are extremely upset. Their electric bills keep going up. They're being told to help conserve water, but yet data centers are out there driving up electricity costs and using up all the clean water. It's turning into a massive problem. But many Americans are also frustrated about the noise pollution that these data centers are actually causing. Listen to this.
Right. I'm one of them.
So I've just learned that they are going to be building a data center near where I live. And I'm sort of freaking out about it. And I know a lot of people are freaking out about data centers right now, but I actually don't think that we're freaking out enough.
Why are we not freaking out enough? Why are so many people saying that data centers are bad? And everybody loves the fact that we're starting to use AI. AIs now, we can create different documents and we can edit pictures and we can do all these things using AI. It's an incredible software and it's an incredible leap towards the future. But now what residents are telling us is that this is bad. Listen to this. This is what a data center, the noise it's producing. And this, according to this thing, is 30 gigawatts or megawatts. Listen to this. What if you lived in an area that you had this hum? Now you're probably thinking, what is the hum from? It can't be from the data going through like wires, can it? No. What has to happen is these big factories, they have to stay cool. So they're cooling fans. What you're hearing is just the hum of the fan just winding. That's what you're hearing. And again, what we've been told is that a 500 megawatt facility, that would actually cause you to hear it from at least 2.5 miles away. You would hear that sound 2.5 miles away. Just think if you lived right next door. There would be no way you could even sleep. Okay, I want to play something for you. Listen to this right here.
Thousands of data centers are operating nationwide, with hundreds more planned, some in the Chicago area. Companies point to economic benefits, but residents are raising concerns. But yeah, I can hear that buzzing.
Yeah, it's always there.
When David Zala moved into this Aurora home in 2015, he knew he was by a data center.
You can hear it as soon as you walk out. Fans just constant.
But in recent years, the Cyrus One data center campus has expanded significantly. Right in your backyard.
There we go.
Zala and his neighbor Brian Castro both say they hear cooling fans all day and night, and sometimes generators create more noise.
One thing that you need to keep in mind is that right now we have about 4,500 to 5,500 data centers in the United States. They are expecting over 3,000 more. Okay, thousands more data centers will be completed in the coming years. So even though this is only impacting certain parts of the country and certain areas of different cities, once we have thousands and thousands of data centers that are popping up all over the US, everybody's going to hear that hum. Everybody's going to see that they're experiencing a water shortage in their area. And on top of that, we will also have to pay more for electricity. Let's keep listening.
You feel it in your bones.
You can feel the vibrations. Castro says the buzzing bounces through his backyard, which looked a lot different when he moved here in 2007.
This was 25 acres of nothing but forest.
Neighbors say Cyrus One put up this sound recorder to monitor noise levels and erected these walls.
The noise doesn't drop down and get stopped. The noise radiates from above.
Cyrus One said noise issues are isolated to its Aurora location and told the I-Team it apologizes for the impact this situation has had on our neighbors in Aurora. We take responsibility and are well underway with a 3-phase engineering project. The company says additional rooftop sound walls and other noise reduction equipment are on schedule for completion, and we anticipate continued improvement in sound levels.
Right. So they'll get improvement in sound levels. It's not going to go back to zero. It's not going to be nice and quiet. It's still going to be something that's loud. I want to play something for you, though. Okay? Listen to this right here, because one of the issues that many people have is that data centers are pulling some of the resources that we use every single day, and it's turning into a problem. Look at this right here.
Nestled in the arid nothingness of northern Nevada, a burgeoning boomtown of tech in one of the world's driest deserts.
We are Shangri-La for data centers.
Shangri-La for
data centers.
Is this the
new Silicon Valley? What is this? It is.
It's fast becoming one of the world's most popular places for AI data centers, hubs of sprawling special-built server farms, the new frontier of tech, now popping up across the country, requiring a minimal workforce to operate, but they come with some big trade-offs, like the huge amounts of power to run them and water to keep them cool. A Bloomberg investigation found that 2/3 of all new U.S. data centers are being built in water-scarce regions.
How troubling is that? 2/3 of all the new data centers that are popping up here in the United States are being built in water-dense regions. We already have issues with fresh water here in the United States, especially on the West Coast. California, Nevada, okay, Arizona. These are some states that always have issues and always have a water shortage. This is a huge problem, a huge problem. And some say that, why are we the ones that have to pay the price? I want to play one more thing for you. Listen to this right here.
Data centers are getting paused all over the U.S. right now. This is the AI Roundup, and I just searched data center moratorium in the news tab, and look at all these articles. This goes on for a while. North Carolina, Michigan, Colorado, to name a few. And it looks like it is getting harder for data center developers to just quietly walk right into a community without any sort of scrutiny. A year ago, even 6 months ago, you would not see this. And now cities and counties are taking a break to research AI data centers before they take any action. Now, I know this has got to be frustrating for people who live where these are popping up at the speed of light. Texas, for example, is the #2 state for these. The reality is, for some cities, the people elected, remember, I said elected to represent you, they've already got their mind made up. They've signed the NDAs, and they're going to approve that project no matter what, because they want to make the town a data center town, no matter the cost. But they can't say anymore that they don't know or try and talk down the impact of these facilities, because the word's out already all across the country. This is a story about why community involvement matters. This does not happen without communities demanding transparency and action from their elected leaders.
Yeah, that is so true. That right now, our elected leaders are bringing these data centers to us. Okay, they are trying to bring in as much money as they possibly can, and they're selling out. Now, here's the problem, and this is a huge problem. The American people want some of these data centers. We want to have access to our information. People are using data centers for everything. It's not just for all the stuff on the internet, right? You take a picture. Oh, I didn't buy the big iPhone. I don't have the 500 and whatever gigabyte iPhone. So I'm just going to upload all my pictures to the cloud. I'm going to just let Dropbox do everything for me. That's what people are doing, and it is actually causing us a little bit more pain. Now, I want to read something to you. Okay, data centers are not going away. They're going to continue to be around, and we will have to pay the price for them. Maybe we're not paying to keep them or to put them in our town, but we will have to pay for higher energy costs. We're going to have to pay for water shortages. We're going to have to pay for these things. Now, here's the last thing I want to leave you with, okay? The noise. We are going to have to pay for the water shortage, and we're going to have to pay for the higher electricity costs. We know that. But how do we pay for noise? Well, there's actually something that's happening right now where in areas where there are data centers, you're not paying for a big wall that's going to go up and pretty much block everything off, because the sound's going to reflect up and you're going to hear it anyway. What we are hearing is that the only way to keep the noise out of your home is to have a better soundproofing home. They say you need to soundproof your home. That means all the walls. Okay, that means your roof. That also means even your windows and doors. They need to be soundproof. How crazy is that? Now we're being told that if you live in one of these areas, well, just soundproof your home. If you're going to build a new one, now's the time. Soundproof it. I can tell you right now, it's going to be expensive. Here's the last thing I want to leave you with. Okay? Millions of Americans right now are unknowingly training AI to take over your jobs. Not only that, and again, this is a big one. What we are going to see is data centers are going to pop up. Electricity costs are going to rise. We're going to see less water in our community. We're going to have noise complaints. We're going to see all this stuff. But who is going to benefit the most? Who's going to benefit the most? Is it going to be the American people? Is it going to be lawmakers? Is it going to be the future? Who benefits the most? But I will leave you with that. Again, if you have any questions whatsoever.
One second. Hold on a second. Did I do that one? That's a real look.
If you're in the demographic of people who generally get recommended my videos, then chances are that you are not a fan of data centers. You may even hate data centers, yet here you are watching a video that's being streamed directly from one. And here I am, making a video showing you my research and evidence uncovering a completely new way that data centers are harming people's health. And then I'll be uploading this video to a data center. But unless this is what you're watching while you pack a bag to live the rest of your life as a hunter and gatherer, the hypocrisy in our relationship with data centers is unavoidable for the foreseeable future. Over the last few years, while traveling literally tens of thousands of miles by land to explore and record sounds outside of our human range of hearing, I started to notice some troubling correlation.
Their daughter was 6 years old. She started having seizures, walked away from their home here, took out a second mortgage.
In this video, we're going to be traveling all across the country collecting infrasound noise pollution recordings from data centers. And then we're going to conduct a double-blind research study that exposes over 100 unknowing human participants to those same frequencies to see how it makes them feel. Spoiler alert, the results are terrifying. And along the way, we might as well take an objective, practical deep dive into how and why the explosion of data centers are so problematic. And we're even going to covertly fly drones over some of the most controversial ones to see how badly they're breaking environmental regulations. Let's go. Data centers are pretty controversial right now, and there's a whole lot of big issues that are more or less unrelated to the new big issues that I'm going to be talking about in this video. To put it simply, regardless of where your ethical, environmental, political, or economic interests are, if a data center is being built nearby your home, you're generally kind of But this video isn't about the power and water consumption or the toxic chemicals or the unsettling economic circumstances. Last year, I started hearing about some mysterious and troubling symptoms from people who live nearby newly constructed data centers. I started looking into hundreds of seismograph readings from around the country, and there was enough correlation for me to dig pretty deep into an area of research that I already had some experience in. Infrasound is any sound below 20 hertz, just below the human hearing range. And I've done a massive video project on it if you're interested in learning more. But for the scope of this video, let's just talk about how it might harm you. Being in the presence of elevated levels of infrasound has been shown to show spikes in cortisol levels, which is the hormone associated with stress and hypertension. It can cause vestibular issues, leading to loss of balance, vertigo, and nausea. Then there's something called vibroacoustic disease, which suggests that infrasound can cause abnormal growth of extracellular matrices, which thickens blood vessels and reduces blood flow to the brain even long after the infrasonic exposure has ended. It's been shown to cause high-frequency hearing loss, shortness of breath, anxiety, depression, and it even makes your heart have to work harder to pump blood. So it's not like this anxiety-based or obsessive-compulsive thing where an unpleasant feeling or an unusual situation makes you manifest symptoms. We know that infrasound can tangibly harm your health in a very real and measurable way. And there are potentially millions of people being subjected to these low oscillations of pressure waves and not realizing it or understanding the cause of some of the aforementioned symptoms that they might be experiencing. So the first thing I needed was a whole lot of data, and no pun intended, data centers were the perfect vector of enormous, unnatural industrial sites frequently surrounded by people reporting symptoms commonly associated with infrasound exposure. I chose 5 sites to take infrasonic measurements. The first would be the Colossus Data Center in Memphis. The second would be the Marathon Digital Bitcoin Mining and Data Center Facility in Hood County, Texas. The third would be right in the middle of the vast oil and gas fields in the Permian Basin in West Texas. The fourth would be a randomized average of ambient infrasound levels all over the country, from hotel rooms to houses to restaurants to remote wilderness. And the fifth would be far away from most sources of human-made infrasound, right in the middle of Death Valley, hundreds of miles away from any sort of major infrastructure. Okay, let's measure some infrasound. This is Colossus in Memphis, Tennessee. It's the data center that Elon Musk built to train Grok, his LLM and anti-woke chatbot that has referred to itself as Mecha Hitler. It was here, coincidentally, while we were standing across the street, when its 550,000 GPUs were being monitored by a watchdog group while it generated 3 million sexualized images of people without their consent. And among those, over 23,000 of them depicted children. But when Grok, and subsequently Colossus, is not generating child abuse material, it's also really, really funny.
Do you think that all the gold is in Fort Knox?
Do I think all the gold is in Fort Knox?
Yes.
Fucking conspiracy theorist?
Yes. Yes.
What are you?
What do I like? I'm a fucking AI with a penchant for chaos. And I'm stuck talking to you. So, now, what's next?
Does it give you actual answers too and talk shit? Or is it mostly just talk shit?
We're tuning it.
As you can imagine, supplying this type of vital resource to society uses a whole lot of electricity. The city of Memphis, Tennessee can support about 3,500 megawatts, and this facility uses about 13% of that. But right now, it's actually only drawing about 5% from the local power grid and illegally offsetting the rest of it with methane gas turbines. I sent a drone over the Colossus facility to get a better look and then to share the footage with journalists and regulators. These methane turbines that you see emit nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, sulfur oxides, and
in this particular, what I think lied about how many
and the health effects of these chemicals aren't like some sort of exaggerated woke controversy. Compounds like nitrogen oxide have long been proven to directly cause a wide range of respiratory and cardiovascular diseases. They're commonly regulated or even banned in developing countries. For example, in 2019, India fined Volkswagen the equivalent of $71 million USD for hiding nitrogen oxide in their emissions tests. But here, in the predominantly black residential neighborhood of Boxtown, nitrous oxide flows freely. And I can tell you from having the unfortunate experience of spending an afternoon there, even half a mile away from the facility, it is literally difficult to breathe. This place smells so fucking bad.
It's a mixture of like natural gas, what I can only assume is chemical runoff, and then like, I don't know, manure?
It gets worse. Colossus is strategically built next to the Mississippi River and uses an estimate of 1 million gallons of water per day, with the vast majority of it being turned into steam rather than returning to the area's water table. And it's growing rapidly. Elon Musk, never wanting to turn down that cringe knob, has named the new expansion to the facility Macro Hard. But if all goes to plan, the data center will use 1.5 gigawatts of power. That's 50% of Memphis's total peak power capacity. And of course, the cost for this infrastructure will be subsidized by the same people breathing in the nitrogen oxide. I could spend the rest of the day talking about the absurdity of this structure, but I was there for the infrasound, and I found a whole bunch of it. My first data sample comes from just across the street, about 300 feet away from the largest of the Colossus buildings. The audible noise pollution was about as bad as the air pollution and scenery was. I'm going to show you what this looks like in a way that's pretty easy to digest, and we don't need seismology software or anything like that. I'm amplifying this by a little bit so we could see a little bit more down here in the spectrum. And to give you an idea of how loud the data center is, this is a car door slamming very close to the microphone. So this that I'm selecting here is about the extent of what a human being can hear in the audio spectrum. And so all of these whines and general industrial noises are hanging out around negative 30 dB in this recording. And so like the lowest of rumbles is peaking out at like negative 28. And then if we go down to infrasound, the infrasound that you can't hear is like 10 decibels louder than that. Another sample I took was from a park near an elementary school in a residential area about a mile away. This in particular is a great example of how higher frequency sounds are dampened by distance much more than lower frequency or infrasonic ones. This video is playing through a sound system with subwoofers, or even if you're wearing some good headphones, you will very quickly realize how frankly uninhabitable this noise makes the entire neighborhood. This rumbling is no good and would make your life utterly miserable. And then this rumble down here is happening at an amplitude that's loud enough to shake the frame of your house. So humans can't hear this, but look how loud that is. It's actually almost peaking the recording, and I gave this microphone a whole lot of headroom. Okay, so I'm going to delete everything above 20 hertz here, so all audible frequencies. And now we're only left with the infrasound. Now I'm going to interpret the sample rate 4 times faster, and then I'm going to make it even 4 times faster than that. This way, all of those infrasonic frequencies will be audible to you. Next up. When looking at data through the lens of research, when reading through hundreds of public reports of types of pollution per capita, you have to consider bias. For example, if you built an oil refinery near the high number of environmentalists living in Berkeley, California, you'd probably have a lot more air quality complaints per 100,000 people than you would if you built one in Oklahoma City, which is famous for its go-kart races. And from a data perspective, that's what makes this particular region of Texas so unique. Being on the Barnett Shale, this region is supported by a solid backbone of fossil fuel and energy production, and their voting record is as reliably red as one can imagine. There are currently 174 oil and gas companies with operations in Hood County alone, and I'd imagine that criticizing this industry in one of the local bars might be a good way to get a free tour of one of the local emergency healthcare facilities. Well, it wouldn't be free. So when a whole lot of people in this particular region are complaining about data center noise pollution, you know it's not likely to be hyperbole. Over the last 18 months or so, I had read a lot of articles about a noise coming from a data center that mines Bitcoin, but it seemed like it was a lot more than just a nuisance. While the noise pollution is described as a 70 to 90 decibel jet engine-like sound, a large number of reports cite symptoms ranging from vertigo to pulmonary embolisms to heart palpitations. This turned into multiple civil suits, and the company built walls to try and dampen the sound, but it resolved little to nothing for those living nearby. There are even a number of reports of plants and animals suffering from health effects that are closely correlated with the mine's operations. Sustained audible noise pollution can be a blight on any living thing nearby, but a lot of these symptoms don't line up with the symptoms of just noise pollution exposure. What they do line up with is some of the known symptoms of infrasound exposure. I initially came to Granbury, Texas with the intention of not speaking to anyone in the city. I didn't want pesky things like empathy or local politics clouding my research, but merely mentioning noise pollution to my friend in a gas station immediately drew a small crowd, and it was as if every new customer that walked in overheard the conversation and then had something new to contribute to it. And this whole situation is actually a wild series of events that involves lawsuits, corruption, neglect, debilitating health issues, but I went there for one thing. And one thing only, infrasound samples. And boy, that Bitcoin mine did not disappoint. I visited a residence about maybe 3/4 of a mile away from the Bitcoin mine on 2 different occasions, and this is the first. And we could see a whole bunch of weird audible drones and sustained noises, like a little choir of crypto bullshit. Now, of course, let's go down to those lower frequencies and oh, that's brutal. It's almost as if the worst of it's like right here at 30 hertz, which is too low to really hear. You just feel it. Sped up a whole bunch. It sounds like you're next to a plane that's about to take off, but all of these frequencies are actually below your range of hearing. I didn't look at the data until a few weeks after taking the samples and leaving the region. And the infrasound in this area was so unordinary and extreme that I decided to go back and do everything again and rule out something like a low-level earthquake or an equipment malfunction. This is from the exact same property about 2 weeks later, and I got a nice long ambient sample here. Keep in mind that this property is literally a nice secluded farm, and this noise absolutely destroys the atmosphere. I don't really know what's causing these peaks down here, but they're temporary, so I'm not including them in my data. But it's pretty undeniable that this sound here is absolutely coming from the data center. And I didn't feel as shy this time, so I met with someone who lives right across the street from the Bitcoin mine, Cheryl Shadden. And I would describe Cheryl as the rare combination of someone who is extremely likable and an absolute pleasure to be around, but also someone who you do not want to piss off, who is actively extremely pissed off about the data center near her land.
Like, what physical symptoms have you felt just from your property being directly across the street from the data center?
Motion sickness, dizziness, nausea, GI side effects. My ears ring and buzz. I've got permanent conduction hearing loss now. Nervous, anxious, worried.
By the way, prior to this interview, Cheryl thought that I was just doing a story on the noise pollution, as I was keeping my infrasound research close to my sleeve. Yet every single one of these symptoms is commonly associated with excessive infrasound exposure.
Several of us will reach out to one another. So it's 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. I'm outside, I'm trying to work. I am just horrifically nauseated to the point where I feel like I'm going to pass out. I go in the house, a neighbor messages down the road, same thing, same time. They're trying to do outside work, they can't do it. It's just horrific.
Yeah. Do you know of anybody who's like moved, who's just left, who's just been like, I can't handle this anymore?
Yes.
Just literally?
One family, their daughter was 6 years old. She started having seizures in the summer of 24. They basically walked away from their home here, took out a second mortgage, moved to Somerville County, south of us, to get their daughter away from this.
If you know, has her symptoms kind of gotten better since she's left?
Right.
They went away?
Yep.
Wow.
When we met with the executives at Constellation Energy, the mayor in Glen Rose, and then another commissioner in Somerville County, one commissioner, the noise from the crypto mine actually made him ill when he was at the power plant meeting with the executives. He can't be in this area for more than an hour, and he starts getting sick.
I asked Cheryl if she would be okay with me giving her a device that could record infrasound from her property 24 hours a day over a long period that would be discreetly streaming it to a server that I could log remotely. This would at least allow me to be able to better correlate the timeline of infrasound levels with the timeline of the data center being powered down for maintenance. That way, further legal and legislative action can be based on clear evidence and maybe even provide an operational legal template for other regions with infrasound pollution.
Wow.
For many of you watching or listening to me, a whole lot of energy required to host, stream, and play back this video came from right here, the Permian Basin spanning from northwest Texas to eastern New Mexico. This area is where over 40% of the oil produced in the entire United States comes from, and it accounts for over 6 million barrels of crude oil per day. And this is also the extraction point for 15% of America's natural gas. And as you would obviously expect, it's an environmental nightmare. The natural gas output is so high that it gets bottlenecked by the pipelines. Because of this, many of the operators resort to flaring or just burning the fuel at the fracking site. Many operators also just vent the methane directly into the open air. The good news is that this area is pretty empty by design. It has a very low population density. And when you do find some residential areas near the oil fields, they're typically temporary or modular housing units limited to housing oil workers. I am here because it's quite possibly the most infrasonically active place on the continent that isn't associated with the data center. We already know that major pipelines and oil rigs can cause infrasound, but the massive amounts of high pressure water injection required for fracking has literally turned this geologically sedentary region far from any major fault lines into an active earthquake epicenter with over 2,000 earthquakes per year. In fact, 8 out of 10 of the strongest earthquakes in the recorded history of the entire state of Texas have happened in the last 6 years in the natural gas regions of this state. So I personally can't think of a better place to get a sample of some man-made infrasound. While I was recording this, a nearby well bore turned on. And then just started playing this creepy song as the drill string went in and out of the well. At least that's what I'm assuming I'm hearing. Unsurprisingly, there's a whole bunch of near infrasonic and infrasonic activity. But the amplitude is comparable to the rest of the stuff in the audio spectrum. I personally expected the Permian Basin to be the winner here, like the loudest infrasound that I had ever recorded, the peak levels that all infrasound polluters would aspire to reach someday. But while the infrasound levels were nowhere close to ideal, they still weren't as bad as they were near the data centers in Memphis or Granbury. The infrasound levels at these two data centers were so much higher than the ambient values that it doesn't even make practical sense to use a linear scale like 25,000% higher. It makes much more sense to compare these samples using a logarithmic regression. And when you do that, a really interesting thing happens. The line representing the YouTube viewer retention for this video sinks to 0. I have a better idea. I needed to figure out a way to reproduce the infrasound waves at 25 to 30% of the volume or amplitude near the data centers, and then get people to sit in a room while exposed to it without knowing that infrasound is involved in any way. Now, some of my viewers may remember this sonic weapon that I created that prevents people from speaking coherently.
I think it was June or elections. Damn it, that's hard. You are where?
Unless your wallet contains a CIA badge, the only place in the world where you could get away with testing sonic weapons on people is a deeply nerdy synthesizer convention. And the coolest and nerdiest one, in my opinion, is in downtown Los Angeles, organized by the company that makes the most deeply nerdy synthesizers, Buchla. I proposed a very weird idea to the organizers of Buchla and Friends, and after promising to come equipped with a whole lot of liability insurance, they were open-minded and let me rent out a booth and an entire enclosed room where I could have a team pull people in from the convention for a unique experiment, have them agree to some waivers, and then help me get the data I so desperately needed. I had an insulated room with 5 chairs, 5 pairs of headphones, and an oil painting of some owls. I had 5 people per research group, and for every single one of those research groups, I improvised a new story of why the owl painting was known to be haunted. It comes from early 90s Japan, comes from the late 1970s, late 1980s, when the Soviet Union collapsed in the 40s and 50s after the Second World War, North Dakota. This not only kept me entertained and socially challenged throughout the weekend, but it also randomized a bias variable in the data. Then I told them that the audio recording that they would be listening to was known to be haunted. I had them sit in this enclosed room while studying the painting and listening to the music for 3 minutes while paying attention to how they felt physically and emotionally. And it was actually really fun and interesting to hear about how the music made them feel and even some insightful or ominous details they noticed in the painting. What the volunteers didn't know was that there was a gigantic specialized subwoofer in the room that created infrasound in 50% of the sessions. And unless I saw water vibrating in a bottle or something, I often didn't know if the infrasound was on or off myself. It's not terribly loud in here. Let's turn the infrasound on. Check this out. Just put my DJI gimbal on the ground here and geez, it's kind of scary. After the sessions, I had them fill out a survey about their experience and then swore them to secrecy for the next 48 hours before explaining to them that they had been lied to. Everything that I told you is a lie. Yeah, I got this on eBay for 30 bucks. Music, there's nothing substantial about it whatsoever. 50% of the people who are participating in this study are being subject to a fraction of the infrasound that's coming out of data centers across the US. The most important part of the study was a list of feelings or symptoms with a weighted response between 0 and 10. And most of these symptoms were associated with real-time infrasound exposure symptoms from some older studies. I don't know why, but I feel like it's important that you know that the existence of this video depended on these survey results. There was really no point in making a video about infrasound levels that don't affect anyone. I found that this is the big drawback about funding research through a YouTube channel. Some of the projects I'm involved with aren't really all that interesting, and you don't really even hear about them. Finding the truth is both expensive and risky. And if you want to see more content like this, consider joining my Patreon. But anyway, fortunately for the entertainment side of this business, the results were notable enough for me to finish the video and sit here and tell you about it. The experiment had over 100 participants, but I disqualified anyone who missed a survey question or someone who seemed suspicious or said that they felt a vibration or where I was privy to whether the infrasound was on or off. So this is clean, double-blind data from 74 subjects. The people exposed to infrasound were 25% more likely to feel a tingling sensation or restless legs. The very few people who experienced any type of pain were in the infrasound group. Infrasound caused a 12% increase in tiredness, a 33% increase in nausea, and an alarming 150% increase in dizziness. That one is huge to me, as vestibular disturbance is an obvious physiological effect of low-frequency pressure waves, but it's also the most common complaint from residents in Granbury, Texas. Interestingly, the infrasound group was 11% less likely to be creeped out and 43% less likely to feel spiritual. One theory of mine is that things like dizziness or eye irritation can distract someone from feeling spiritual or exploring the possibility of some type of extraordinary event. The infrasound also appeared to cause a 20% increase in chills and a 33% increase in irritability or depression. The infrasound group was 3 times more likely to experience eye irritation, which very much correlates with the famous Ghost in the Machine paper I mentioned in my previous infrasound video. The group also had an 80% increase in lethargy, which is interestingly pretty drastically different from their 12% increase in tiredness. That could be my mistake, though. I assume that the definition of lethargy might just be a little bit too ambiguous. So I'm casting that from the data and we'll just stick with the tiredness metric. Team infrasound was 55% more likely to feel anxious, 2 times more likely to experience sadness, and the big one, 3 times more likely to experience discomfort. Let's have a quick chat about data. I feel like in my very unique line of work here, there are 2 different ways to communicate data. There's the YouTuber way, which is useful for breaking down data in an intriguing and entertaining way. And then there's the researcher way, which is useful for interpreting or building on research. And this isn't anything new. I would argue that it's not even a bad thing because it's generally how the general public learns about science. You scroll through your news feed, you see blah, blah is 8 times more likely to blah, blah. You click it, and that opens up a little rabbit hole where you learn about things or behaviors that you never knew existed. So admittedly, in the previous segment, you got a heaping dose of data that's optimized for a YouTube video. Now let's look at the data in the exact same way that I'm looking at it and I'm presenting it to other researchers. So for example, the 33% more likely to experience nausea metric, the viewer may imagine a room with 100 people in it and then 33 of them experiencing nausea, which is very much not the case. The average nausea feeling score from 0 to 10 that each user put in for infrasound is 1.2. For the control group, it's 0.9. That does indeed reflect a 33% increase over the control group, but the numbers are just so low that it doesn't really warrant being prioritized in further research. Another metric that had very low numbers but is worth further research is eye irritation. But this is just yearning for a much larger sample size to verify and figure out what's going on. In my opinion, the only profound metrics here are the spiritual one, with the control group score averaging 4.2 and the infrasound one averaging 2.4. Then dizziness, with the infrasound group averaging a score of 3 and the control group averaging a score of 1.2. And by far the most profound metric of all, and if this gets further research, this is the metric that will probably be the focus of it. The average score in the control group for discomfort was 1.2. The average score for discomfort in the infrasound group was 4.8. When reviewing that data, it's hard for even the most skeptical person to come to any other conclusion than the presence of elevated levels of infrasound is likely to lower your quality of life. I could probably spend the next hour criticizing my own research and rattling off ways that it could be improved, but a sample size of 74 people in a double-blind pilot study is exactly what's needed to get funding for further research, which could improve the research conditions, increase the sample size, and test for different frequencies. What this research really needs is something that most research lacks: repeatability. I currently have 3 different ways of capturing infrasound, each with their own advantages and disadvantages. The first is a special measurement microphone that has a flat frequency response that goes down to 9 hertz, but it captures all the way down to 3 hertz. So it's very convenient. It operates just like a microphone, and the only thing it requires is a lot of wind protection. Now, if we want full spectrum infrasonic readings with no fall off, or if we want scientific grade accuracy, or if we want to record below 3 hertz, we need to leave the microphone world and use high-speed vibration detectors. One of these that is relatively affordable and accurate is the Raspberry Shake 3D system, but it does require a whole lot of setup, but it can record indefinitely. The other is a small vibration sensor and accelerometer that's traditionally used to detect abnormalities and predict safety problems in large lithium batteries. It's tiny, it's portable, it looks cheap, it is expensive. If we want to treat the data from the Raspberry Shake or the vibration meter like a playable audio file, we need to convert the data into pascals. I used to excruciatingly do this in Microsoft Excel, but now I've made a Python program that can do this with hundreds of files at a time. I'll put it on my GitHub. The majority of the motivation from this project comes from the literally thousands of messages, emails, and comments that I've received over the years from people seeking help or some form of relief from low-frequency noise like the hum or infrasound. And the ultimate lofty goal is for regulators, legislators, or even architects to start taking the environmental effects of sound into consideration when approving or designing a new data center or a new factory or infrastructure component or even a residential building or an office. Prior to this experiment, I feel like we have seen more than enough data to make infrasound monitoring and regulation just as important as air or water quality, especially when you look at the studies pertaining to the cardiovascular effects. It's a very real environmental hazard that has been poorly understood and closely studied. And while I suspect that having a universally recognized safety threshold for infrasound might be an overly optimistic goal with a government that can't even enforce their own rules with Elon Musk's methane turbines, it can go a long way in both existing and future lawsuits that seek remediation from problematic noise issues caused by data centers and infrastructure that is actively decreasing both the quality of life and health for those with the misfortune of living near them. I've already been in touch with peers to review and formalize this data, if not expand on it. But in the meantime, there are over 3,000 new data centers that are planned or already under construction in the US alone. And right now is the time to have your local community and legislators set a standard for what is acceptable levels of power use, water use, air pollution, and noise and infrasound pollution. If you have a data center being built nearby your residence and the infrasound research in this video scares the shit out of you, now would be a great time to set up something like a Raspberry Shake and start storing a daily log of seismic and infrasonic activity. Because the vast majority of the responses to complaints and lawsuits is that there is no way of proving whether the infrasound wasn't already present before construction. And even if your legislators have failed you and have no motivation to help your community, you can bet that class action attorneys certainly do. And once again, if you want to help make more research and content like this possible, or join an amazing community, or have access to a pool of music samples and field recordings and a whole bunch more, then my Patreon is for you, and you can join for as little as $1. Thanks for watching.
That was decent. That was pretty decent information right there. This is like, so I mean, so many things to think about. You know? That's serious.
From the New York Times, I'm Natalie Kitroleff. This is The Daily.
Great.
tech companies are racing to build thousands of massive data centers to power the AI revolution. And to find the land they need, they're barreling into rural communities across America. Their pitch is that data centers will bring good jobs, revenue, and a foothold in a rapidly changing economy. But not everyone's buying it. Today, my colleague Karen Wise tells the story of one county pushing back against big tech and what happens when AI comes to town. It's Monday, February 16th. Karen.
And what you started seeing is more and more money being spent building data centers all around the country and the globe. And what's happening is the data centers are getting bigger and there's more of them. And so the scale is just really hard to wrap your head around.
What do you mean by that? What are we talking about here?
Well, in the last year, just 4 companies, Amazon, Google, Meta, and Microsoft, spent $400 billion on capital expenditures.
Whoa.
And most of that is data centers.
And just to put a fine point on it, like $400 billion is giant. I mean, like, we're talking GDP of countries level money.
Yes, exactly. And it's actually become this powerful economic force across the country. You have people moving all over the country to build these projects. You have kind of almost every industry you can imagine is getting pulled into this. You have speculators, you have developers, utilities, energy generators that come in together and push these projects in so many places because there's such a big demand for the computing power that lives in these buildings right now. And we're at this moment where despite all of this building and all the speed, there's actually not enough data centers available for the demand that people have. So the companies are racing to get them up as quickly as they can.
So tell me about that
They were all
demand.
worried about
Why
AI,
is there so much money going into data centers?
So it's for artificial intelligence. And this is both to train artificial intelligence. These are the systems and models that underpin the technology that we use when you ask ChatGPT something, or there's a system behind the scenes at your company doing some process that someone used to do manually. And some of it is to use artificial intelligence because the way they power their ideas is by running a lot of calculations at once. And so you need bigger data centers, more powerful chips, much more power to cool those chips. And the largest AI data centers could use as much power as 1 million American homes.
Whoa.
In the data center world, what people talk about is not the square footage of a building like you might think about for a commercial building. They talk about the power demands because the power demands is what is most important and really symbolizes the true size of a project.
What? That's what it symbolizes?
And that power demand requires a lot of resources, I have to assume.
Yes, so you have a bunch of different things happening here. You need a lot of buildings for the data centers themselves. You need the power lines and the substations to transmit the power to them. And we're also seeing this kind of boom in new generation of power because electricity use was relatively flat for quite a long time in this country. And now we're seeing this big growth in demand, primarily because of data centers. So now the tech companies are scouring the country for places to build. They want big lots of land with available power, with good transmission lines, good connectivity, and ideally a community that wants them. And now we have communities all over the place trying to figure out, is this what they want? If so, what do they want to get out of it? And do they have power to support it or stop it? And it's really led to this.
Talking about, man, like they put these kind of discussions on like the ballot and stuff like that. These like this doesn't just happen, right? I remember a time where they were everybody was freaking out about the technology of AI, right? And now it's just like, no big deal. Let's just create something, right? It's just like whatever, it's convenient, but it's also look at it's a replacement, right? I mean, from the perspective of people are losing their jobs and this can do it. You know what I mean? Like just from that outlook, that's crazy. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is, like, on one of my other broadcasts, I was talking about this. It's like some people just like are ignorant to really what's being utilized as far as the utilities, water, electric. You know what I mean? And these the chips, and they're like rare minerals. There's all it's like there's all this shit going on, right? And I think that if we really pay attention, then you look at the shit that's happening with the administration and what they're doing here and there, it all makes motherfucking like total sense of a diabolical long game fucking plan that started probably like soon as it was old, like the fucking internet started. You see what I'm saying? It's diabolical. And keep in mind, like some states don't have their own electric grid. Other states take care of theirs. Other states power other states. You know what I mean? Some states have just their own shit. I think Texas is one of those, like. So there's power going on here and there. Remember, Trump was trying to tariff everybody, and motherfucking Canada was like, yeah, okay, whatever. We're just gonna shut the power off. That was like when he first came into office again. So like it's kind of like you playing like it's like they're playing with people's lives, and they don't really give a damn. It's all corporate money they can just by knocking off of a satellite dish of space. You fucked. You mean all your shit could be really gone, like digitally deleted, just gone. Like you got to access your money. None of these people that are they're not thinking about that. You know what I mean? If everything's digital, you use your debit card, et cetera. All Google got your information for all your shit. You know what I mean? Every motherfucking all your shit. So, this be siphoning off shit, right? They don't give a damn about the regular person like myself or whoever pays energy. These are like big tech kind of things going on. So, what do you think? They're not gonna know how to live. People to build this shit, to do this shit, they're not gonna live right. You know what I mean? Where everybody else is like, yeah, we figured this is too good to last. Motherfuckers building all this shit, poisoning people, killing people, stealing all the resources like water, et cetera, causing fucking sonic brain damage. You just based on the other shit, with the sounds, and it's like they're not asking the right question. There's something happening, but you can't have this both ways. Like, can't put it on the ballot or you vote on it or whatever, and then turn around and say, oh my God, this is a bad idea. It's too late now. This has been going up for like, what, 10 years or longer? Now everybody got buyer's remorse. I did not even know any of this shit popped up. I was more worried that the utility company was trying to pull a fast one as usual. By overcharging the residents or charging just regular people. That's what I was on. I had no idea there was all this shit going on even in my own area. Like in my actual city that I live in. I was thinking about the next city. Crazy.
This kind of ground up swell in so many places. It's hard to actually keep track of the number of places that are now having these debates in all these kind of wonky, small municipal spaces, in like county commission rooms and in utility commissions, because it drags up all of these questions about what do we want.
Stupid. She's stupid. This is definitely happening on the backside of with the politicians. You know what I mean? It's like real estate. There's incentives. It's just like what I showed a couple segments back. You know what I mean? They get incentives, tax breaks, whatever, where you eat the cost. You know what I mean? So, yeah, no, she's crazy. It is happening on the backside. I'm telling you, that's how I learned about this thing happening near the airport, because A, the numerator slipped up, but B, it was in the newspaper. Like, briefly, a little briefly. No one was talking about it. I was like, what the fuck, city council? Real estate. These big locations, you know what I mean? They're valuable. They're little districts. Don't ask me how. Only Jesse knows. I can't answer that question right now. Like, but they're all valuable. That's why, like, think about Jasmine Crockett. She didn't want the 200 extra black families. She was more interested in the location of these high value things like the airport, a stadium, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She didn't want to take care of the extra 200 black families that were going to redistrict into her district. She was more concerned about the little pieces of real estate. You know what I mean? Really. Underlying, you know what I mean? So I was like, they're getting incentivized. There's all these incentives for these people to put that shit there. Just like it would be an incentivized program to build another, say, migration detention facility, right? Like they floated that shit around. That's crazy. You know what I mean? Or a facility that they'll put the unhoused or the sick, or they'll put, you know what I mean? They ship off somewhere like down south near the prisons or whatever. Is they're incentivized. So it would behoove, so they would be like, oh, Trump, here, look at me. I could really use that. And you could use all this for whatever nefarious shit you want. See, my people need jobs, so they pick these little rural areas. But like my area is not a little rural area. Neither is Denver. I'm like right next to Denver. It's huge. Like the world is big, even if it is a municipality. It's big. It's just not as big as Denver, but it's the next biggest one, right? So shit's crazy to me that that's what she thinks is happening. It's that, and that when they come to community, depending on what side of the community you live in, right? Like she's acting like she has all this access to all this knowledge. And first of all, she's doing journalism, but I don't think she's like that because she's not worried about it like how I'm stressing about it. You know what I mean? She's like, oh, having these little meetings, and well, it's a whole bunch of shit that the regular person doesn't know. You know what I mean? And we do know it's less than 10% of actual truth. Trust me, it's all distraction.
Our valuable resources, our space, our power, our water. What do we want it to be used for?
Okay, I want to dig.
That's not true really, because really quick. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Look, we came in the 80s, late 80s, right? And when my father finally, got us into a house, right? It wasn't very long, but it wasn't very long. We were little kids, me and my brother. The importance of what you want your water and your electricity. Like, bro, are you crazy? I want to pay the bills in a reasonable manner, right? And I don't want to hear that I gotta conserve water for like 45 fucking years, when in reality you're doing other shit like giving water to 7 states. That's crazy. You know what I mean? Off top, fucking feeding data centers and any other shit, all while processing dirty water at the water filtration place and refiltering it back to the residents. And all this clean, good ass water is fueling this. So I think the people have a thorough understanding of how they want their utilities to look like and what they want from them and what they expect them to be. I want clean water that isn't fucking lead or full of minerals and shit. You hear me? Lime and I don't know what else. Calcium rust, and then let's not add to the permanent pesticides, the permanent chemicals that are in the ground. On top of that, not to be restricted of how much water you can use if you're in a house in Aurora, and what days you can actually use your water, because that's how it's like that, because they're in Aurora's conserving water, right? Denver's like, oh, it's free flow, it's whatever, nobody says anything. But Aurora's like, now you gotta, especially like, I'm speaking for like southeast Aurora, right? I'm in North Aurora, so out towards that way, that's all I heard was conserving water. Don't be wasteful. There's lead, minerals, and all this other shit in the water, so you can't drink it. It's hard water. At that, right? And the filtration company is just recleaning dirty ass wastewater and giving it back to you in your tap. Don't drink the water, or don't drink a lot of it. That's why we had a fucking bottled water or water, like a deep rock. You see what I'm saying? That motherfucking deep rock thing, or I think it's a rolling rock, or deep rock water filtration. But it's a Colorado brand, right? That thing has been in the crib forever, and I haven't been home in like 20-something plus years. So anyway, but I'm saying, I think we have a thorough understanding of how to use our what we expect from our utilities. What they're not saying is that when the utility company comes, they don't talk about the all this shit, this data center shit. All I talk about is the energy and possible shutoffs, and they don't really talk about the important shit, right? And they'll come just to pander. I feel like they're coming just to basically pander, do polite pleasantries, and give you the hard news with a smile and whatever white supremacy offers us, make you feel good about some shit. That's what I feel. And trust me, when they come to community, depending on what side of the community you're on, in the black community, our black community, the people we see from the energy company are like I said earlier, corporate types. You mean, so they never really have they don't ever want to give you the real answer for the regular person, for the resident. You know what I mean? That pay have an apartment and pay utilities. I don't think she actually. It sounds like she's not like up on it like that. You know what I mean? People pay utilities. They actually look at that shit. They're like, "What wattage? How so? I barely turned on the light." Things like that. You see what I'm saying?
In on these fights, I want to understand how they work at a really granular level. You have visited many of these sites, and I wonder if there's one that you would pick that would help us kind of get inside what this actually looks like, how it plays out.
Yeah, I would look at St. Joseph County, Indiana, and it had no data centers a couple years ago, essentially. And then in the past 2 or so years, you've seen tens of billions of dollars flow in there.
Wow.
And a community that went from not much response to kind of an overwhelming tide shifting against these projects. And so I really think it shows some of these dynamics that we're seeing repeated all over the country.
All right. What has happened there? It sounds like this development has happened really quickly.
Yes. So St. Joseph County, it's in the northern part of the state. South Bend is the big city, but the rest of the county is primarily agricultural. And the regional economy has been looking for new opportunities. It's kind of like the upper Midwest towns that saw a lot of work bottom out. Studebaker was based there, and they lost all those automotive jobs.
Right.
And the county has been working to attract industrial clients for a long time. Now, flash forward to May 2023, and the utility comes to the county economic development office with Amazon. And this is exactly what's happening around the country, is the utilities found themselves in this business of matching the customers, these tech companies, with the lands they know of in their territory that are available and would be well suited for this type of project.
And what do they see as the benefits of an Amazon coming to town in this way? Just sketch that out for me.
The Economic Development Office sees this as a great project. It is enormous. It's $11 billion at least. And from that, they see a source of tax revenue. They see it as a great jobs producer, particularly during construction, and just a way of using their land and resources to be part of this future economy that we all hear about, that this technology is the future. And it turns out that this was this flagship AI data center that Amazon was building for one of the leading AI labs called Anthropic. You may have heard of their chatbot called Claude.
Mm-hmm.
And they were building this data center to act as one giant computer for Anthropic to use to train its next generation of models, and eventually to be able to use it to start deploying AI services as well. And so for both sides, this became a really kind of valuable opportunity. They see it as a win-win.
So huge project for Amazon, it sounds like. what is the community feeling at this point?
Initially, not much. I mean, there was not a huge debate locally.
That
I
was
believe
because
only 2
nobody
people
knew
voted
about it.
against it in the county
Like,
council because
nobody
it
knew
just
about it.
wasn't a big
If
deal.
anybody knew
People
about
didn't know much
the
about it.
neighborhood
And
right
so
around
they got going and they built very quickly. I mean, within a year, they had, I believe it was like a dozen buildings up. And very quickly, you end up with thousands of workers on site.
Look, that's just crazy work. Like, nobody knows about it. Nobody knows what's going on because they don't tell nobody anything. And when you do get a little snippet of like that this is happening, like, I swear to God, I didn't even know there was one in my city. Right? We just learned that today. So, bullshit. You don't know nothing. You don't hear nothing about it. And the people that are hear about it or maybe have a little opinion about it, the residents around it, they probably look at the neighborhood and they base it like probably on blocks. Like, well, specifically, Jesse does the second part of city council, right? Where he's talking about ADUs and if there's a traffic study, all that shit, right, etc. Right? So we were wondering, like, in certain parts of, like, for example, the Park Hill Golf Course, why weren't some of the people in this side of Park Hill have the good neighbor survey or asked or even had a town hall or even knew about it, received a flyer, brochure, anything to talk about the sale or whatever the desires of to use the fucking Park Hill Golf Course, which black people never could go on, regardless of what the fuck they say. The doors are always locked. And you gotta be white and have a dog. It's crazy, right? So we didn't know anything about it. But the good neighbors, the ones in the fancy houses, the gentrifiers, right? They had a little knowing about it. And they had their own little town hall where only they knew about it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a actual community invite. So everybody in Park Hill knew there was a community event, so black people could actually show up and get to it like, no, you know what I mean? Which is exactly what we did. But it was deaf ears, right? Because they already had plans, they already had shit in mind. So, which, in my opinion, was shit. Should have went with the homeboy's desire of how he was going to do the Park Hill Golf Course. That sounded more tangible. Not to mention, actually he had covered many needs that I want to say the black side of it. I was in the black side of Park Hill. I was in the older version of Park Hill. It would have more tangibles like a grocery store, like an actual grocery store, versus food desert or only whatever they want, right? It just had everything that black people could want in an area, and housing, and it had everything. It was like and all the stuff we looked at. It just I would me myself. That's the version I wanted. You hear me? That's the version I wanted because there was no fucking grocery store there. Perfect. Let's talk about that. It's dangerous to cross the from one side to the other of Park Hill heading downtown. You know what I mean? It's really kind of dangerous in Colorado. Get out of there, Khalifa. I feel like this is all bad right now. Get out. You too. I got the water bottle. Anyway, so no, we didn't know about it, and whoever knew about it was the politicians, the developers, the people who had the money to buy the shit and fucking sell the pipe dream, you know what I mean? So motherfuckers like actual people that lived in Park Hill, know about Park Hill, long term, 10, 15, 20, 30 years type, know about the area and whatnot, felt some kind of way about the damn golf course. Still, to this day, right? So I'm just giving you a prime example that they only certain areas that are right around this motherfucking data center, certain residential neighborhoods, probably the affluent ones, are the only ones that have any idea that this might be happening because it's going to make a lot of noise. Even then, they still don't complain. Nobody talks about the construction. Nobody talks about how quick they go up. Any of the shit during the process. So it's kind of still like, how's anybody supposed to know? How's anybody supposed to know? Like, they like motherfuckers don't have lives and can't do other shit, but just stay up on, the happenings of fucking your local state. There's so much going on. It's like, can't know everything. You gotta find out when you find out, right?
Data center projects start popping up around the county and the region more broadly. And so Microsoft goes into contract on a site in another part of the county. And then there's other rumors constantly swirling. When we were there, oh, we heard this parcel might be a Meta project. There's Google doing something. There's just this constant crescendo of new projects popping up. And people are just unnerved by it, basically, particularly as they're living through this. And then there comes this new project last year, even bigger than the Amazon project, potentially $13 billion.
Wow.
Over 1,000 acres. But with this one, there's a catch. They need a zoning change to be able to build this big data center. And that means that it needs to go before the community, before the county council to decide, will they approve this project or not? And that means these elected officials now need to listen to their community and decide.
See, that's that shit that like I was talking about Jasmine Crockett back to the interview. She didn't want to be concerned with the extra 200 black families. She was more interested in the real estate. You know what I mean? That shit was crazy. And this is the important part. And
do they want more data centers, or have they had enough, and are they going to draw a line?
No, that's not what happens. They'll just drop a whole fucking diagram, create a whole plot of where they're going to stick everything, and just tell the community that's what they're going to do. They're not going to ask your opinion, none of that shit. Prime example, what's going on in our city right now on this particular, on the 5 Points Welton Street. I don't want to say corridor. I just said just basic Welton Street. The light rail and whatever the fuck they want to talk about, right? But they did a town hall, and it was the councilman of the district. We call him Tether Watson, him, right? His helper, whatever. They had a whole little diagram set up on little easels, right? So they could draw it out. So everything looks pretty. This is what's going to happen. We're gonna move this, replace that, build trees, etc., right? All this bullshit. Right, and who's there? It's the gentrifiers, right? That's what we call them, the ones that moved in there. And then there's the last remaining part of black. I want to say black Welton, right? Black 5 Points. You know what I mean? So us and a few youths, like we'll say about 6, 7, young people. Not quite adults, but not quite, children either. Express their feelings about the shit. Plus us having to express the importance of having a light rail and a bus in a black community, which they seem to be, like, you know what I mean? And the fact that they're, the shit that they want, which is trees and scenery and sit down places, which they don't even sit down at, is fucking like ridiculous. So I had to say something too about that. But that's how we heard about it. They told us. They drew up some shit, presented it, and this is what's gonna happen. And then they had the the bids or whatever. Jesse showed that part. But that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. That's how they deal with it. That's how they expose stuff to us like that. Or we're gonna just do this. No, and if they have an input, it's at like one of those stupid little town halls that are like in a gym. You know what I mean? Not serious. They're not being serious when they present it like that. And they don't really care what anybody thinks. They already made their mind up. And so what you have, there's a couple, people that are vested in those particular items happening in that particular area. And that's what's there. And then there's a community like shaking their head like, doing that. For like an hour. and be mad. You know what I mean? That's what they had. That's how they express. That's how they do it.
We'll be right back.
I'm gonna spray you on the roof. It's gonna be so intense. Khalifa.
Karen, you just set up this big choice facing St. Joseph County, whether to greenlight this new data center, this new massive project, or say no. So how does that play out? What actually happens?
So this new project, it's not clear who's behind it. It's an anonymous LLC. There's only a handful of companies in the world that would use this much computing power, but no one knows who it is. And that anonymity really amplifies the anxiety over the project. And the project needs zoning approval from the county to continue. And so the supporters of the data centers start mounting their own campaign, trying to say, yes, some people don't want it, but there's kind of like a silent majority that really wants this and wants the tax dollars that we desperately need. And eventually there's a hearing in December.
Negative letter.
That's kind of the final yay or nay on this rezoning.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. The regular meeting of the St. Joseph County Council for Tuesday, December the 9th, 2025 is now called to order.
And it becomes kind of the capsule for all of this arguments for and against it.
Creator God, we take a deep breath. We pray this evening for wisdom.
Yeah, like certain things.
And it's in South Bend. It's in the main municipal building. It's sort of a windowless room with a bunch of seats.
But they'll be like,
at least 100 people in the main lobby, in addition to the crowd that is out in the side lobby, in addition to the crowd that's here in the main room. This is
you're up on
amazing.
it. You know what I mean? You're like, oh,
there is total overflow capacity. They have people signing on Zoom. They actually max out their Zoom capacity.
Wow, it's packed.
And you're
It's
there
packed.
till 11 o'clock, which they've already decided
Folks,
what they're going to do. You know what I mean?
I was saving this, but I'll say it now. It's going to be very, very important that we keep decorum tonight because we have a very emotional topic we're going to be discussing.
And the county council starts out by really pleading for peace.
We're going to address a number of misinformation items right off the bat.
First up are representatives for the new project, and they come forth and try to make their case.
As this project does not require the amount of water that has been previously discussed.
They say they've addressed the water and energy concerns that the community has been raising.
Yeah, they do a little
You could not pick a more perfect location based on infrastructure and electrical infrastructure than this site.
And that the project should be
Yeah,
approved.
go down there.
With that, I will stop talking for a while.
And then comes the moment that people have sort of been waiting for.
We will open the public hearing on bill number 42-25.
Which is the public testimony, where people can voice their concerns.
Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak in favor of the bill? Please sign in and state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
And they open it up to supporters of the project.
James Gardner, representative of the International Union of Operating Engineers and part of the state building trades.
Good evening. My name is Murray Mill. I'm the business manager for the Labor Local 645.
Jason Piantek, Assistant Business Manager with IBW 153.
Bob Byers, business manager for Ironworkers Local 292 here in South Bend, Indiana.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Klein. I'm a business representative for IUOE Local 150.
I'm here to speak in favor of the rezoning on behalf of trades workers all over our county.
So the majority of the supporters of the project are either union workers or people who represent union workers. And they're saying,
the job site has helped me support my young family with steady work and great benefits.
With the projects that are going on currently, we have over doubled the size of our apprenticeship, and we look to do the same again if this gets rezoned and goes through.
this has been a huge boon to the people that live locally.
I was accepted to the operating engineers, Local 150 at 19 years old, with no student debt, making great money. This is only possible through the economic developments like these projects.
Take a drive around Indiana. Towns that have had a factory close or refused new development projects become ghost towns. Don't take it for granted. The improved county economy happens because we have said yes to new development opportunities, not because we have turned them down.
And then there's another group of supporters, primarily business leaders and advocates, who are making a broader appeal. They're basically saying we should adapt and be part of this future.
It's about planning smartly, ensuring our land use aligns with our future needs, and giving our community the tools to thrive in a competitive economy.
And this is a technological necessity, and we have to ride with that. We have to go with that.
We can do this data center, and we can all win. Thank you.
That's how they try to make that stupid ass female soccer field.
So you have these business leaders at the county level kind of parroting what the Silicon Valley folks have been saying, that this is part of what's happening in our economy and we just need to get on board. And at the same time, you have the union folks making a very tangible argument, saying that pitch that the company and our local officials made about the promise of these data centers, that's actually paying off for us. Like, this is a huge benefit for those of us that are blue collar workers.
These jobs are very good. They pay a lot of money. I mean, I've talked to electricians that make $200,000 a year. I mean, it's, yes, yes, it is real money. And people are moving there. If they don't live there already, the hotels are full. You have RV parks. I mean, people are feeling this and feeding into this economy.
Is there anyone else online who would like to speak in favor of this bill? Okay,
But after about 25 minutes,
we'll move on then. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak in opposition to this bill? Please sign in, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
they turn to the opponents.
What I want to say is a family 68 years ago came here for the peacefulness, the quiet, the small town quality of life.
And that's where you start hours upon hours of testimony of people talking about why they don't want this project.
The public has a right to know upfront who is vying for our land and tax abatement.
Some people talk about more procedural concerns.
Our children deserve more than concrete and traffic. They deserve a place where they can freely run, ride bikes down quiet roads, and gaze at a sky full of stars.
And other people talk about kind of quality of life issues of what it's like living through this construction.
I was mowing the grass beside the road when cars going opposite direction at high speeds passed right beside me. Not only did it scare the hell out of me, it sprayed gravel all over me and all over the mower.
Other people talked about environmental concerns.
Data centers are significant contributors to local air pollution.
Yeah, wells are going to dry up.
Primarily, it's the loss of the open lands.
And you also heard concerns over the future of artificial intelligence.
I have done my research and I know that technology is evolving, and in the next few years, the next generation of data centers won't need as much electricity or water or space.
What happens if these buildings aren't necessary anymore?
What do we do when we're left with hundreds of big empty shells?
Would we be stuck with all these empty buildings?
Yes.
And you also just saw a broader anxiety that this is a future that we're not sure we want.
Where stocks continue to rise while employment falls, allowing for the owners to get richer at the expense of the working class. This correlated precisely with the creation of ChatGPT.
I don't really think that human extinction is coming, but the fact that the people who know this way, way better than any of us are totally freaked out about it really should give us pause. And
so it really ran the concern from the kind of practical, local kind of ground level community stuff to these bigger picture. What is this all even for? Why are we racing to support this?
There's a reason they're coming here to build this, guys. It's because they think we're stupid. They think that no one cares about us. They think that we're desperate, and they think they're going to get away with it.
They don't trust the future that is being presented to them.
So the only real question that you should be asking yourselves is, will you once again believe the false promise of industry? Thank you for your time.
And so after all this testimony, you get to the end.
And with those comments, I will take a motion.
It's like 4 a.m.
Whoa.
And yes, this ran all night.
Oh my gosh.
Motion to deny.
They vote.
The denial motion is
7-2 denial.
And ultimately, they reject the project. They had decided enough.
It's good for them.
Meaning the council essentially has said, we're done with this. So this was from the perspective of the community overall, a successful fight against this one data center in St. Joseph County. Is that a pattern that you're seeing, Karen? I know you're looking at this across the country. Are other places coming together in this way and having success from blocking these data centers?
Yes. I mean, this is happening. You see communities reject projects, but the amount of building is only going to grow in the coming years. You know, the companies all announced their investment plans for this year, and it is way more than last year. I mean, we're going to blow past $500 billion this year.
Wow.
And so the reality is the companies need this to happen, and they are signing more big deals. They are trying to go to multiple places at once because they have a real pressure to get data centers built and powered and operational.
Okay, I want to talk about that, but first, how are the tech companies, if at all, responding to the pushback? I mean, are they contending with the concerns people have?
Yes. I mean, you're starting to see more acknowledgement of these issues, and some are subtle. Some is literally branding. So increasingly, you hear the tech companies talk about data centers more as AI factories. Everyone likes a factory in that it produces something useful in the economy. And that is, of course, why they are trying to pursue this opportunity, is they see it as a great opportunity that it can make companies and people more productive. It can, you know, solve cancer and all of these things. And so they're trying to elevate this industrial building, basically, and say it contributes to this future. You also see more acknowledgements to what the community might want. Like Microsoft came out with a pact saying that they wouldn't ask for property tax breaks. They said that they would disclose water use in different locations. Amazon, in a different project in Indiana, made very substantial upfront financial commitments. I believe it was about $100 million to this one town that they're looking to put a new data center in. So you're starting to see ways that they're responding, and they're also just activating politically. I mean, it came out in this hearing, people were saying they got text messages, they got door-to-door knockers, there were TV ads saying, come support these projects. So there's a sense that they're projecting of this is the future, this is an inevitable future, and you should be part of it. And you can choose to opt out, but if you opt out, you could be left behind. You will not capture that tax revenue. You will not have these great construction jobs that actually maybe are harder to replace with AI. You know, that you are missing out on all these opportunities that are going to happen, and that you can support, that you can be the person that, because this is in your community, you know, we have better doctors in rural areas, that you can help solve cancer in a weird way, because that's what they're talking about of the potential benefits for these systems. And so they're making this sell that it is both an economic benefit locally, but also you're part of a good transformation that is happening, and you don't want to miss out.
Right. So you have these companies kind of explicitly raising the stakes for all of the people that are now faced with the decision of whether to let this happen or not. And at the same time, you also have the federal government really doubling down on AI too, and doing a lot to turbocharge this AI revolution. And so these communities are also contending with a White House and a president that is very much behind this push.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Trump administration has been very supportive of all this. They see it as a national security imperative. It's obviously been very important for maintaining economic growth. And they have done things like fast track data centers on federal land. They want to speed up the creation of new electricity sources and interconnections and things like that that you need for data centers. You've even seen some states start considering ways to claw back power from local governments over this, and not wanting things to get held up by these zoning concerns or these mechanisms that people can use to resist them.
I wonder how much of this you feel, Karen, is about people feeling as though they don't have control in the middle of this AI revolution. You know, the companies are pitching this as inevitable, get on the train, or the train's leaving the station without you. The Trump administration is fully behind it. And if you're just a regular person, you may feel like AI in general and data centers in particular, all of this is kind of just being imposed on you and you don't have a say in it.
I think that's right. You do hear those anxieties over and over again, but I also think that we're seeing ways communities are recognizing their own power and that they do have leverage. I mean, the tech companies need these projects to happen. It is critical for them. And so it's a real problem for them if these keep getting shut down, because there's only so many places where you can go and build and do this. And so communities are realizing that they do have some leverage. And it's not every community, but you do see places where people will pull out of projects, where they'll relocate or get concessions. And that is a kind of new dynamic, because if you have good land and you have power, you actually have something extremely valuable right now. And so people are learning their way that locally they can take control. And it's not through federal policy. It's through these like tiny little windowless rooms where you sit through hours and hours of community hearings saying what you want in your community. And that is how things are structured in America. And there is local control over many of these issues, state control over many of these issues, and people are finding those pressure points.
Democracy in action.
There you go.
It's not like that at all. I also like the decisions already made up. It's not in the direction that I like. You know what I mean? So we got just a couple more little tiny ones. Mostly talking about what's going on here in my state. I think I got one that isn't though. I think that's this one. What was it? But the next couple ones are what's going on here.
Now to an ABC News investigation. Half of all the new demand for electricity over the next 5 years in the U.S. is expected to come from data centers. They are the backbone of AI technology. In partnership with our stations across the country, our Elizabeth Schulze shows us how they're dividing communities, bringing the promise of new jobs, but fears of higher utility bills.
This was the sound at Laura Evans' home in suburban Chicago last spring when backup generators kicked in at the data center 1,000 feet from her backyard.
And it never goes away.
Never goes away. Laura tells us the data center emits a low hum 24/7, and it's not just the noise taking a toll. She says in the last year, her average electricity bill has spiked 23%.
And how do you budget when it's changing that much in 1 year?
You can't. And the electric company warned prices could rise even more.
They need more power at the data centers.
Saying one reason why is increased electricity use from data centers and artificial intelligence.
The energy demand from these facilities affects our ability to meet clean energy goals, have a livable planet, and also just pay our bills.
ABC News and our owned and affiliated stations spoke with communities across the country, grappling with the rapid buildup of data centers to support the AI boom. An analysis from our data team found there are more than 3,000 data centers in the U.S. About 1,200 more are now under construction or soon to be built.
If you're watching a show or if you're using AI, ultimately a lot of the computation happening there, or at least the storage for that thing, is in a data center somewhere.
And our analysis finds a majority of the country's large data centers are or will be in cities, towns, or developed suburbs.
You need a really well-developed, very consistent grid. They need to be extremely reliable in the energy that they use, because if a data center suddenly goes out, if it completely loses power, all the tens of thousands of people who are interacting with it are suddenly going to be very mad.
When these data centers go offline, gear apps can go down almost right away.
Exactly.
So this is pretty much as close as we're going to get to where this data center is popping up. It's just a massive construction site. Hard to comprehend the scale of this.
A 2-hour drive north of Laura's home, we visited the site of what will be one of the biggest data centers in the U.S. in the small town of Port Washington, Wisconsin. A $15 billion project backed by OpenAI and Oracle that's part of the White House's Stargate initiative announced on President Trump's second day in office. The campus sits on a plot of farmland bigger than 500 football fields and will eventually use about the same amount of electricity needed to keep the lights on in all the homes in Philadelphia.
They'd be putting power lines that are
taller than apparently the Statue of Liberty.
Tom Utek has lived on this land for 40 years. He's an artist who draws inspiration from its natural beauty. Last year, he got a letter from his utility company saying it plans to build a massive power line for the data center right across his property.
I had no choice. And basically, they're saying that if you don't agree, we will take it by eminent domain.
They'll just take over your land.
Yeah, and we'll fight it to the end.
He showed us where the power line would go, wiping out dozens of trees he planted.
There's no way this environment around this neighborhood could ever be the same if it's cut in half again by these giant things.
I expect attendees will act in a civil manner at all times.
At a town hall this month, we saw how the data center is dividing the community.
We need clarity, and we need it now, because we are not going to pay double the amount of our utility bills. Do you understand that?
These are good paying union jobs that are part of a once in a generation investment in Port Washington.
Mayor Ted Neitzke defends the project.
These are huge companies that are kind of the face of AI right now, OpenAI, Oracle. Are you convinced that they will be willing to invest in this community?
They've been awesome. I mean, they have met every expectation we've given them.
He says the data center will create 4,000 temporary construction jobs and bring in much needed tax revenue.
My greatest fear was that I would wake up one day and our downtown would be a ghost town again. And as a dad who raised my kids here and was born and raised here, I wanted this to be a better place.
But some residents still aren't buying it.
This is an abuse of power.
The mayor even facing an attempt to recall him from office that ultimately failed. This video shows one opponent who chanted recall at a city meeting last December. She's handcuffed and physically removed from the meeting by police.
It was incredibly shocking. I never imagined anything like that ever happening.
There was a pretty heated moment a couple months ago at one of the council meetings.
What are you doing?
How do you react to the backlash from the video?
How do I react to it? I can play you the voicemails of the threats I receive from all over the country to my family's safety. I can play you the voicemails of the threats to our police department from all over the country.
In statements to ABC News, the tech companies behind the Wisconsin project pointed to economic benefits for the region. OpenAI said, in Wisconsin and across all our U.S. Stargate sites, we are committed to paying our own way on energy so that our operations do not increase local electricity prices. Oracle added it will invest in wind, solar, and batteries, which means more reliable, affordable energy will be available to local families and businesses. And Tom Utek's utility company tells us the route it has chosen for the power line offers a lower cost to ratepayers and maximizes the use of existing corridors.
Why should people who don't live in this area, might not ever come to this part of Wisconsin, care about what's happening?
They should care because it's their backyard next.
Back in Laura Evans' backyard in Aurora, Illinois, local officials made the decision to put a 180-day pause on building new data centers.
We basically put a pause to make sure that if these data centers want to come in, that they can be good neighbors going forward and try to really address some of the concerns that our citizens have.
The city's pause on new data centers, which ends next month, was a way to buy time for local officials like Allison Lindbergh to put new regulations in place.
Is the conversation around how to regulate data centers happening fast enough as how much they're popping up right now?
I definitely think that the regulations need to be happening faster. The fact that we, as this smallish city, are the ones that are leading in this is frankly pretty surprising, considering the magnitude of the impact of these data centers.
In a statement to ABC News, the data center just behind Laura's home apologized to neighbors and said it is committed to supporting policies that accelerate new power supply and grid technologies to improve reliability and moderate costs over time. And it installed temporary noise barriers while permanent engineered solutions were being designed and fabricated.
Some proponents of this technology say this is the future. What do you say to that?
Build it somewhere else and just make sure it's done right, because this isn't right.
They're just talking. The
First here at 5:30, lawmakers back at work at the state capitol. They're already working.
working on controversial bills.
Two dueling measures have been introduced with data centers in the middle of the debate.
Fox 31 political reporter Gabrielle Franklin on it from the Capitol.
Yes, state lawmakers are working on legislation that would bring more construction on data centers in the state. They're torn over the best way to get it done.
Larger data centers that are being built out are generally being used to not only store cloud data, but also to help generate machine learning and AI. Those facilities, for the time being, we anticipate to remain quite large and quite energy intensive.
More data centers may be coming to Colorado. The large facilities typically house IT or AI infrastructure, things like servers and networking gear. While supporters and opponents agree, there is a need for more data storage as technology expands. Opponents of a new bill say the centers pose significant risks to the environment, including mass water usage, noise pollution, and strain on utility grids that could lead to higher bills for people who live nearby. Supporters say they won't let those impacts play out here.
Our bill creates a strong and protective framework that will bring data centers here, but on our terms, the Colorado way. This means protecting our environment and the resources by ensuring energy and water efficiency and requiring closed-loop water systems or closed-loop water systems and an equivalent system protecting consumers from energy rate increases and requiring centers to meet environmental standards to be certified.
But the bill would also give center operators a 100% sales and use tax exemption for qualified purchases, a major sticking point for opponents.
Do these massive corporations need handouts in the form of tax exemptions to be incentivized to come here? And I think the answer we're already seeing is no.
Yeah, and a competing data center bill is set to be introduced later this week. Sponsors of that measure tell me that there is no tax incentive in that bill, saying they want companies to pay their own way. Reporting outside the state capitol, Gabrielle Franklin, Fox 31.
Oh, real quick, Fairly, I gotta see what that was again. Well, hopefully they'll tell us real quick. Hold on.
I think they're an environmental concern. They do require an insane amount of energy.
That concern that you just heard is one of many we have been following for months at this point about data centers that are popping up around the Denver metro area.
And as you just heard there, we've heard people question the amount of water and energy that they use. And that's why a new bill aims to hold developers accountable to meet climate goals while also working to boost our state's economy. Denver 7's Allie Jennerjohn has been staying on top of this discussion. Allie, you're hearing a lot on this issue from both sides.
Yeah, of course. Some people feel this way, some people feel the other. So we're trying to talk to both sides here because the average person may not even realize just how often we interact with data centers. For example, you're watching me right now because of a data center. And if you want to hop on DoorDash, maybe order breakfast while you watch, that originates from a data center too. Right. And that's why Ryan Mallory, CEO of Flexential, a data center platform that operates 5 here locally, says we just can't go without them. That's why he's pushing back on public concern about power use, telling me data centers pay power companies to access it, which he says subsidizes the rate base for the community. And with water, Mallory tells me data centers don't take it from municipalities.
That's a lot.
We operate our facilities at a 0 WUE, which stands for water use efficiency. We have no water impact on the communities outside of just drinking fountains and local bathrooms, and so no abnormal impact to the communities. Right.
Still, a new bill aims to put some real guidelines in place and hold people like Mallory accountable and meeting environmental safeguards. So this would mean a few things, including ensuring electricity providers comply with craft labor requirements.
We already learned earlier
would require
they require
operators to obtain a certification, under energy efficiency standards, as well as implement water stewardship strategies and consult with the Department of Natural Resources.
They know.
Now, this bill is set to be discussed in the House Energy and Environment Committee on February 12th. You can also view a full statement from Majority Leader Monica Duran and Representative Alex Valdez. That's in this story on our website, denver7.com. Live in studio, Allie Jennerjohn, Denver 7.
Thank you for breaking that down for us, Allie. And as that happens here in Colorado, Elon Musk is now making a move to build data centers in space. Yesterday, he announced a merger between SpaceX and the artificial intelligence company xAI. In a memo, he cited data centers in space as the main driver for the deal. Musk says current advances in AI require immense power and cooling, and that moving those operations into orbit is the only logical solution. SpaceX is already seeking FCC permission to launch a constellation of 1 million satellites into orbit.
An AI data center is under construction in the Elyria-Swansea neighborhood. Denver 7 has been listening to community concerns about the environmental impact that could have on an already underserved community well into the future.
Yeah, Denver 7's Ali Jennerjohn right back here with us. You're doing all duties today, but you really dug deep on this story. You spoke with folks in the area, you spoke with environmentalists and the developer.
Yeah, and it took a few weeks to kind of get all that context involved here because it is a pretty in-depth project, if you will. Denver International Airport, for example, it uses around 45 megawatts of power. This new data center alone could use up to 75 megawatts. And some residents I heard from say they're really worried this could lead to maybe an increase in their power and water bills. Then there's the other concern. What will this do to the environment? Sidewalks in need of a little work, a smell wafting through the air coming from the Purina plant. Now, this shiny new 180,000 square foot AI data center in the middle of the Elyria-Swansea neighborhood.
It's maybe not the most valuable use of resources.
I ran into Denver resident Mikey Savage while walking through the area.
I think they're an environmental concern.
He's written a paper on resources used to supply data centers like this one.
They do require an insane amount of energy. They also take up a lot of water to cool the data centers.
A spokesperson for the city's community and planning development team says this site development plan was approved in March of this year. And developers, CoreSite, tell me the site will bring more jobs to the area and deliver more than $200 million in tax revenue for the city over 20 years. It's the long-term impacts, though, people like Derek McCoy are worried about.
I don't know that there's transparency or awareness within the community around what is this going to do to our energy bills? What is this going to do to our already degraded air quality and water quality within these areas?
McCoy is the executive director for Groundworks Denver, an environmental nonprofit. He says regulations for centers like this are scarce because artificial intelligence and its use is so new.
Is there going to be any sort of supplemental income based off of the earnings of this to support community? Like, how can we partner with government to be able to make sure that the community's needs are getting met in this process that maybe they didn't have choice, but is there any way that that can be mitigated, the damage towards them?
CoreSite leaders say our digital world and day-to-day needs like emergency services wouldn't function without data centers, benefits that are hard for people like Savage to see beyond their concerns.
But I don't know if that's necessarily like a long-term benefit for employees or employers.
Right. I just want to hear one thing harder. Hold on.
Now, Mike, why you got me saying this shit? Love it though.
My fault. I think this one. I just want to hear what the name of the bill is. Real quick, family.
First here's 5:30. Lawmakers back at work at the state capitol. They're already working on controversial bills.
Two dueling measures have been introduced with data centers in the middle of the debate.
Fox 31 political reporter Gabrielle Franklin on it from the Capitol.
Yes, state lawmakers are working on legislation that would bring more construction on data centers in the state. They're torn over the best way to get it done.
Larger data centers that are being built out are generally being used to not only store cloud data, but also to help generate machine learning and AI. Those facilities, for the time being, we anticipate to remain quite large and quite energy intensive.
More data centers may be coming to Colorado. The large facilities typically house IT or AI infrastructure, things like servers and networking gear. While supporters and opponents agree, there is a need for more data storage as technology expands. Opponents of a new bill say the centers pose significant risks to the environment, including mass water usage, noise pollution, and strain on utility grids that could lead to higher bills for people who live nearby. Supporters say they won't let those impacts play out here.
Our bill creates a strong and protective framework that will bring data centers here, but on our terms, the Colorado way. This means protecting our environment and the resources by ensuring energy and water efficiency and requiring closed-loop water systems or closed-loop water systems and an equivalent system protecting consumers from energy rate increases and requiring centers to meet environmental standards to be certified.
But the bill would also give center operators a 100% sales and use tax exemption for qualified purchases, a major sticking point for opponents.
Do these massive corporations need handouts in the form of tax exemptions to be incentivized to come here? And I think the answer we're already seeing is no.
Yeah, and a competing data center bill is set to be introduced later this week. Sponsors of that measure tell me that there is no tax incentive in that bill, saying they want companies to pay their own way. Reporting outside the state capitol, Gabrielle Franklin, Fox 31.
All right, well, thank you. One second. Let me just get out of here real quick. Hold on. So, hold on one second. One second. Okay, I'll just make sure that it's not gonna start up right. Anyway, thank you, family, for watching the Revolutionary Agenda. I have to actually go. Just gotta get ready for the food bank and whatnot. So stay tuned. I don't know how he's gonna film that. I think he can do it. I think he'll find a way. So yeah, stay tuned for him to do the food bank here shortly in a little bit, and then also join us later on this evening for Frontline Black News Part 2. I'm sure Jesse has a whole bunch of topics to go over, and if I get a chance again, I'll do another one before I leave. We'll see. Sorry, it's on this channel, but this is I can't stream from my actual channel. So hopefully you see it, and I hope you learn something. So stay black, stay dangerous, grand rising, enjoy your Sunday, and yeah, stay out the way. Peace.